we are now going into what is environment, what are the different aspects of environment, etc. So first question is to you only. What is, I don't want any technical definition or anything. I just want you to, from what you understand, what do you think is environment? Not sure the definition. You all have heard that word in a very casual sense, right? Like for example, my friend was in a very hostile environment. You use that word, no? You don't use that word. Yeah? So you generally use that word which is environment. Right? So when you use environment, what is there in your mind? What do you think is the meaning of that word? Surroundings. Okay. You see something around. Okay. So when you say words like environment, surroundings, you mean the same thing. Like there is something all around you and maybe it's good for you, maybe it's bad for you, etc. Okay. So one word we're going to take from all of this understanding is the word surroundings. Surround. I am surrounded by good people. That means I am in a good environment. I am surrounded by people who are very toxic. Then I am in a very toxic environment. Have you heard these words? Yeah. So similar to that, when I'm speaking about environment, if I had to put it into a very technical, very ecological term, then this is what I can speak about environment. Anything, now let's not look into the definition first. Hear me out first. When I asked you, what is the meaning you know of environment? You said surroundings. So now when I'm asking you, it means that, for example, I am standing here. There is a surrounding around me over here. Can I call this area my environment? Are you all part of my environment? Yes? Okay. Is this podium part of my environment? Is the air around me part of my environment? And all you living things are also part of my environment? Okay. Now, I just defined environment with respect to me. Like I said, I am there and all of these things are there. Now, I take myself from outside that area. Is the environment still existing? Yeah? That means even if I am not there, I can call this as a class environment. Yeah? So if the teacher is not there also, if I am not there on the podium also, you are there, desk is there, bench is there, podium is there, all of you, there's air over there, the light over there, everything is there. That means what? To define environment, I don't necessarily need a person over there. I don't necessarily need one object over here. Even if that object is not there, I can define environment. Are you getting it? What did you get then? What is the meaning of this? So, to make it a little bit more clear, environment is the surroundings of anything. Not a human, not an object, not any few objects, nothing. You can define environment even without having any of these things over there. So keep this in mind. Why am I telling these smaller points to you is, when UPSC needs to check your understanding, they don't complicatedly use very, very difficult words. They make things very simple. Okay, they ask questions which are very simple worded and then confuse you. So what I need you to understand is, if they ask you, environment can be defined only with respect to a living organism, that statement is wrong. Okay? Environment can be defined only with respect to a non-living organism, a non-living thing, not organism, non-living thing, wrong. Okay, now to word it in another way, to define environment, I need a living organism or a non-living thing. Huh? This is the statement, hear the statement clearly. To define environment, I need or you need a living organism or a non-living thing. Not necessarily. I don't need any of these things. I can define environment even when nothing is there. You're getting the idea? So there is no need to say that, okay, it's the environment of one thing, of another thing, etc. Environment can be generally all your surroundings. It can be around him, it can be around the table, it can be around this bag, anything. Even if all of these things are not there, this is generally also an environment. Okay, so now let's try to read the definition which they've given. The definition of environment is, let's first read it together and then we'll dissect it. It is the natural component in which biotic and abiotic factors interact among themselves and with each other. Okay, to understand this, we need to break it down a bit. Now coming over here, there are two words used in that definition. There is biotic and there is abiotic. Biotic in very general terms means your living organisms. It can be living organisms, it can be even your microorganisms, whatever has some amount of life in it. Okay, so you have biotic and you have abiotic. Things or features that don't have life in it. So can you, if I take this as my environment, you guys are the biotic components over here. Which are the abiotic components? All non-living, all these tables, this carpet, this podium, the light that is over there, the air that we are breathing, all of this is abiotic. Got it? So now try to read the definition. It is basically a component, it's a natural component. Now why have we used that word natural? Because normally we would define environment, class and everything. This is actually environment defined in the nature. Okay, so environment is the natural component in which abiotic factors and biotic factors interact with each other. Make sense? Make sense to you? So you can have, now nothing is compulsory over there. You can have biotic factors, you can have abiotic factors. Once they are there, they interact. What is the meaning of interact? For example, I'm standing over here. If there was, I'm constantly breathing, right? That means I am a biotic factor, human being, and then there is abiotic factor, which is air around me. I am constantly breathing, and only because I am doing that interaction is the reason why I am able to stand alive. You're getting it? If I don't have that interaction, maybe I might not. I am a biotic factor, but then if that abiotic factor is not there around me, what might happen? I might not be able to exist. Are you getting it? No. Okay, where is the doubt? Which is the part that you haven't understood? Interact. Okay, that is the question. Fine. What is interaction, guys? Some kind of an exchange is happening. I'm interacting with you. What is happening over here? My voice with words is coming to you. You take it into your head. You try to understand it. If you've understood it, you shake your head or you say, yes, I have understood it. There is some exchange happening. And when you say yes, I get the idea that, okay, yeah, it's sorted. Similarly, what is mentioned over here is, if I have let's not use biotic, abiotic. Let's use living organism, non-living things. Okay. So you have a you have living organisms, in this case you, okay, and then you have maybe the air around you, the light that is there. So what all, if I am taking you as a biotic factor, what all are there around you right now? You have another biotic factor, which is him. You have non-biotic or abiotic factors, which is the air over here, the temperature which is here, the light that is there. Now my question is, what is the interaction you're having? Are you just standing as a solitary thing? No. You are able to breathe. You are able to have a better, you're feeling comfortable because of the temperature. You're feeling that you have a life. because you are breathing in air. If you have a doubt, you ask him, or you have a communication happening. All of these are interactions. Got it? No, that is what. Nobody is saying compulsorily you have to interact. Got it? It's not saying that you have to compulsorily interact. It can be there. You can have interaction. Got it? Is this clear? That's a very relevant doubt. So his question was, there might be abiotic factors that we are not interacting with. Fine. Let it be. The point is not that you have to interact with all the abiotic factors. You can have interaction between abiotic factors. You can have. Now, for example, she's sitting next to her. She's a biotic factor. But if they are sworn enemies, no interaction will happen. But is she not part of the environment? Yes, she is part of her environment. But is interaction happening? No. Are you getting the idea? So, think about it once more. Environment is a natural component in which the first criteria is you can have, I'm using the word can, not you should. Okay? You can have biotic factors, you can have abiotic factors. They can interact among themselves. Among themselves means what? One biotic factor can interact with another biotic factor. One abiotic factor, for example, the temperature over there gets transferred to the air around him. Who is interacting over there? Two abiotic factors are interacting. Got it? So a biotic factor can interact with another biotic one. An abiotic factor can interact with an abiotic one. Or a biotic and abiotic thing also can interact. But again, the key word is they all can interact. They not need, or it is not necessarily that they should interact. Got it? This is a very key point, because whenever they want to confuse you, there is another term where they have to interact. We will come across that term. So they will constantly confuse you with this. So your understanding of environment should be very clear. Whenever you get confused, think about your surroundings. Okay? Think about your surroundings. As he had observed, there are things around you, but you might interact, you might not interact. But still, it's part of your environment. Clear? This much is clear? Clear? To say this interaction is very necessary, or I will not go forward. Okay? So now, when we talk about the different interactions that we have, this entire subject for the first, I would say for the first five days or so, it's based on the factor that they might interact, and when they interact, we have to learn about it. So, for example, if biotic factor, which is maybe a rabbit, has grass. Is grass biotic or abiotic? Biotic. Okay. Grass is also a biotic factor. Now, they interact. How do they interact? Yeah, the rabbit eats the grass. Okay, so that is also interaction. Interaction doesn't mean that you all sit on a table and talk with each other. Interaction can be in anything. Eating, getting some benefit from another organism. So when they interact, we have learned this in smaller classes. This is not happening just between the rabbit and the grass. The rabbit eats the grass. After some time, something comes and eats the rabbit. Between all of them, what is happening? There is some interaction happening. And we call that as a food chain. Now again, because that interaction is there, what do we have to learn? We have to learn about food chain. Got it? So the first 5 classes where we are dealing with different theoretical parts of environment, it's based on the fact that a biotic factor can exist and it can interact with another biotic thing, or a biotic factor can interact with an abiotic thing. Clear till here? Okay. Now if this is clear, I need you to be familiar with an other term. So let's look at this over here. What all should be there in your environment? Physical factors like nutrients, water, air. Biological factors, which are like your other organisms, etc. Some chemical interactions. Even while I'm speaking right now, there is some chemical interactions happening between the different molecules that are there. Isn't it? It's happening. You cannot see it, but it's happening all around you. All of these things are part of your environment. So if they give you like 3-4 questions, 3-4 options, saying that carbon, spores of bacteria, water particles, 3 of them, and asking you which is part of your environment, what is your answer? All 3 of them. All 3 of them can be part of your environment. Right? Clear? Fine. Now, I need to introduce you to another word. See, the first 3 I'll just tell you the words and then I'll put it in perspective to you, because I need you to understand these words primarily. So you've understood environment, okay? Keep whatever is the pointer I told you, put it in some bold letters, like it can interact and not should interact. Put that in words over there. Next thing I want to introduce you to is a word called as biosphere. Now, I just told you about biotic factors. Bio always indicates something to do with life. Okay, that's the first thing. It indicates something to do with life. So then what could be biosphere? Okay, have you heard? Let's talk about the other spheres. Have you heard about atmosphere? What is atmosphere? There is your earth and then there is a layer of air around it. Okay. Have you heard about this word called as lithosphere? Yeah, lithosphere primarily is on your earth. You have several areas where you have land, rocks, soil, etc. That is called as your lithosphere. Okay. Have you heard about hydrosphere? The different water bodies that are there on the earth. So you have heard about all of these things separately. Now my question is, now I am going to talk about something called as biosphere. And I just told you, bio indicates something to do with life. So what do you think? Take a guess. What could be biosphere? Everything? Everything together, huh? Taking from the diagram, no? Don't try to summarize the diagram, huh? Okay, let's start on with the living organisms part. If I take the hydrosphere, that is what is the hydrosphere on Earth? You have oceans, seas, rivers, lakes, ponds, etc. In all of these things, you have life, right? You have life. You have life and you have non-life also. Non-life means what? Non-living things also over there, right? Okay. So if I take a water body, I can have objects, I can have things which have life in it, and I also have components like your soil or your maybe, the water or whatever that does not maybe have life in it. Okay. So now take this is water. If I take atmosphere also, this is the same case. I can have some living organisms. I can have non-living stuff also. If I take the lithosphere, what is going to be there? I can have living stuff. I can have non-living stuff. So biosphere primarily means in all of these spheres, if I just take the living component of it, living component means what? The living things or the things that have life in it, and if I'm giving a name for it, that's called as biosphere. This is the reason why that diagram is like that. Can you just look at the diagram? I'm saying lithosphere over here, I'm saying water, and I'm saying atmosphere. This one circle indicates that in all 3, you can have what? Biosphere. You can have, in all 3, you can have biosphere. Because, trust me, in most part of the earth, you do have life. Right? Okay. Comes to a very fundamental question, guys. What is life? Right, got it. I'm asking generally. What do you think is life? Not philosophically, but life is just the time between birth and death, huh? What is life? See, now obviously you have different definitions for what life could be. Okay. Now, because we are in a science subject, and let's put it in very scientific terms as to what life can be and what scientists think life is. Okay, first of all, they try to think that saying that, okay, life is something or living is something that can eat, that can reproduce, that can breed, etc. So they were stuck with that definition. And then what started happening is, scientists started finding exceptions for all of that. They started saying that, oh no, what about if I'm saying a living thing should reproduce? But what about there are so many living things that do not reproduce? So can you not say that they are not living? No. Got it. So initially the scientists thought, let's try to define life with all of these features, saying that it can eat, it can breathe, it can breed, it can, find a space for its own. But then for each of these things, they started finding exceptions. They started finding a living thing which did not do these activities. Okay. So then scientists were like, okay, we have to change the definition because this definition is not good at all. So many exceptions to it. And that is when they even went further and they're like, let's not define life based on the features it has. Let's define life on what component it has. And that is when they come about and they say that life is related to anything which is organic in nature. Organic. Have you heard this word organic? Science students, have you heard about organic chemistry? Even if you are non-science, you would have heard about organic chemistry because that would have been one of the reasons why you did not take science. Got it. Organic chemistry. Organic chemistry, when we were talking about it, or let's say the word organic. What is the meaning of organic? Carbon. It is basically anything that has carbon or the components of carbon. Okay. So now they started to even think further. Okay, yeah, let's look at the things which are there. And this is where there's a problem. Now, do you have carbon in you? Does the plant have carbon? Now they also figured out that maybe some okay. See, I don't mean to nag you with this, but try coming at around 10:5. Okay. Primarily because when you guys come in, I get very distracted. Okay. So for a moment, I just lose my train of thought. That is why you see me, just trying to pick up from there. So try coming at around 10:5. Try avoiding 10:30, 10:40 and all that. Okay? Fine. So when I am talking about carbon, okay, so the scientists started saying that maybe let's not think about life in a very practical sense. See, now you all know you're living. Why? Because you're breathing and you're doing all of these things. But then scientists was like, for our purpose, for our study of environment, let's not think of life as something that is living, but instead let's think of life, or let's think of these things as anywhere where there is carbon and carbon components and they are interacting and they are creating some other components. Okay, so you have carbon, you have hydrogen. Carbon and hydrogen interacting create something new. You have one carbon, you have another carbon, they are interacting, create something new. So what happens now think about it, when they just opened that definition like that, when they said that, let's not think of life as living, but let's think of life as organic, they just changed the idea of life for us. They said that life is anything that has carbon and carbon components. But the catch is, if I am going by that definition, carbon and carbon components, when you guys die, you have carbon in you, but you don't have life in you. When you die, you don't have life in you. Like the technical terms that we say, the word that we use, that when we normally say that when you die, what is the meaning that first comes to your mind? That you don't have life in you, but you still have carbon in you, right? So I wanted to keep that in mind. From now onwards, whenever we say life, we are meaning anything that has carbon and carbon components. That means even when you die and you become organic matter, in the case of biosphere, you are considered as a living component. Are you understanding this? I'll say that again. Just pay attention very clearly right now. I'm just clearing the slide. Biosphere, we started off with this. I said biosphere is anything that has, or it's the living component of the earth. Living component. That means compulsorily you should have some living component in it. But now we went on and kept on defining what is this living component. First I told you living component could be anything that is breathing, and I said that no, after some time the scientists changed that definition. Now I am telling you living component means anything that is having organic compounds. And what is organic compounds? Carbon and its different components. So now, when I am saying living components, what am I indicating? Carbon and carbon components. Not the exception, to understand this fully. So, when I am saying biosphere, technically you which is living is also part of biosphere. When you die, the dead organic matter of you is also part of biosphere. Why? Because according to their definition, it's anything that has carbon and carbon components. Got it? So for the sake of when we study environment and ecology, whenever you hear the word biosphere, I don't want you to just think about some living, breathing organisms walking. In your soil, if you have something which is dead, decaying, that is also part of your biosphere. Okay, now think for a moment. Is this definition of biosphere clear to you? Let's read the definition. It is the biological component of the earth which includes lithosphere, hydrosphere and atmosphere. Here it includes both living matter and dead organic matter. Organic means anything that has carbon. And when you look at the life as you, in a very scientific sense, the beginning of life starts when carbon and different components form. That is the reason why they have gone with carbon. Don't think the other elements are not important. The idea of life starts when carbon started forming different compounds together. Got it? Is this part till here clear? So when I am saying, what's the doubt? Biosphere? The entire thing. Simple, okay. So basically biosphere is anything which has life. For example, in water there is life. In rock there is life. What is the life that is there in the rock? Yes. Okay. You can have some carbon components over there. In the atmosphere you can have life in the form of microorganisms. From when I'm taking which all are the, you cannot see one area on the earth saying that this is biosphere. You cannot see that. But you know that in your atmosphere, you have a little bit part of biosphere. In your lithosphere, you have a little bit part of biosphere. So biosphere is where the living organisms and the dead organic matter exists. Make sense? Yeah? To all, that doubt? Yeah? At the back? Let's see. Clear? Okay. Now, if this is clear, question to you. Think and tell me very clearly. On the earth, do we have biosphere everywhere? What are you supposed to think right now? You basically thinking, do you have life and organic matter everywhere? Do you have? On the biosphere. I mean, not on the biosphere, on the earth. Everywhere. Huh? Lately, yes. Okay. Anything else? When I'm saying earth, you are free to include the earth's atmosphere, the earth's surface, the earth, beneath of the earth, everything. The earth. Is biosphere there everywhere? Sure. think. You are basically supposed to think if I mean, I'm not supposed to tell you what you're supposed to think, but think about this, wherein I'm not just asking if a living organism is there, I'm asking if there's a dead organic matter also. Now, you know the earth, right? I don't necessarily have to know geography or anything for this. You have earth's surface, crust, and under the earth's crust, you have areas called as mantle, and there's an outer core, there is an inner core, very, very hot places which are going down. Then you have atmosphere, which is troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, and upwards. What do you think, guys? Everywhere you can see life. Everywhere you will have biosphere. Yes or no? Say something. No. Okay. Now the next question obviously is, so then if you're saying no, where are you not seeing biosphere? In the pool. In the extreme conditions. Okay. What was that? In the Earth's core. Okay. Someone else, something from here? What do you think? Will we have biosphere everywhere? No. Then where will it not be? So, Rohini, when you say extreme conditions, can you give me an example? Okay, mantle or core. Okay, fine. Anyone else? Extreme conditions is one word I'm getting over here. So then, think about this. I'm basically looking at what? If there is life or if there is dead organic matter. Okay. Dead organic matter is not airdropped over there. If there is dead organic matter, what would have been there before? There would have been something living over there. Okay. So primarily I'm asking you a question which says that, are there places on earth which is inhospitable? Inhospitable means which do not have good conditions for life. Okay, he's saying polar regions. What do you guys think? So let's take all the clues. So he said core and core. You said mantle and core. He's saying polar regions. What about the others? No answer. Nothing. It's like you're living on Mars or Venus and we are talking about another planet. Yeah. Okay. Now with some answers that we've got over here, let's move forward. See guys, when you say poles, let's take, according to you right now, when I just take your imagination and think of the most extreme conditions you can think on the surface of the earth, you come across pole, right? Why? Because it's extremely cold. It's extremely, you don't have certain temperature conditions needed for life. All of these things are there. Now the catch over here, when it comes to both your northern pole and your southern pole is, we do see, even in that condition, some organisms existing over there. Okay? For example, you see your polar bears, penguins, some small fish, and even when none of these bigger organisms are there, you see smaller microorganisms. Got it? Because, trust me, when it comes to these microorganisms, there's even a previous UPSC question that reads that if you take bacteria, virus, fungi, algae, any of these microorganisms, in each of these groups, there is one or the other that will exist in extreme conditions. Extreme conditions means extreme cold, extreme heat, extreme chemical, something very toxic. There's some radioactive pile over there where other things cannot go. You will see one microorganism over there. Understand? So on the earth, when you look at the extreme conditions, you will most of the time find microorganisms also. But until I would say 5-6 years ago, in most of the textbooks that you see, they would include one term like the extremes of the North and South Pole. Extremes of the North and South Pole means not the big areas which are there at the, if you think of the earth, somewhat like this. you have certain areas at the extreme points where you don't get sunlight, and if you don't get sunlight, leave the question of your life in itself. Why? Because you need sunlight for any plant or anything to grow. You need sunlight as a basic necessity. I'm talking about those extremes of North and South Pole where you would not even get sunlight. There, it was assumed that it cannot be included as part of your biosphere. Why? Because the chances of life were close to nil. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is because now that has changed. Okay, so if you're reading a textbook, you're likely to find a statement that says in the extremes of North and South Pole, there is no biosphere. But that fact has now changed. Why? Because of the general global warming. What has happened is the general temperature of the earth has all risen up. When the general temperature of the earth has all risen up, even if there is no sunlight over here, even these areas are getting affected. So when these areas are getting affected, there is evidences of deep under the earth, some kind of microorganisms and everything that are existing over there. So now you cannot include extremes of North and South Pole as your biosphere. This is a correction you will have to make if you're reading a textbook that has that. Okay? Because until recently, we didn't expect it to happen. But now it has happened. So, extremes of North and South Pole is also included as part of biosphere right now. Okay? Okay, now coming back to my original question. I told you one thing is not there. Is there anything that can not be included as part of biosphere? As they mentioned, until now, again, this is very conditional. Until now, there have not been evidences of any organism existing in your mantle areas and in your core areas. Got it? So, mantle and core are the areas which are in the earth. In those areas, so even if I'm saying there's a microorganism that can exist in extreme temperatures, that is primarily in your crust and the depths of crust. Several kilometers into the crust also you can exist, but not in the mantle. At least till now, there are no evidences of things that are there in the mantle of the earth and the core of the earth. So if they ask you, the mantle and core are two areas where you might not necessarily include as part of biosphere, because you cannot maybe find life or even dead organic matter over there. Clear? Okay, coming to the I just told you in the recent years they have found this. How many till here is it fine? All of you are clear? Yeah? Okay. Okay, so the current or the contemporary affair associated with this is, see, when it comes to these polar regions, I just told you things have changed over there. Okay, things have changed over there. Why? Because there is a general global warming happening. And this is where around 2 years ago, 3 years ago actually, they started finding evidences of this life. I'll tell you how. Okay, so you have your soil area. So suppose this is the soil area that was there, that could have been there in your polar region, suppose. Now over the time, what has happened? Several layers of snow has piled up on this. Okay, several layers of snow. But normal areas, if there is snow, what happens? After some time sunlight comes, it melts and then the next layer of snow happens. But here, since you don't have so much of sunlight, what happens? One layer of snow is there, the next layer of snow is there, and several layers of snow is there, to the point where for the last 40,000 years or so, you just have piles and piles of snow over there. 30 to 40,000 years is nothing else, it's just snow. But now, thanks to us, now we don't have that much of snow. The snow has now started melting. So this snow that has been piled up for the last 30 to 40,000 years, we call it as zombie ice. Zombie ice. Okay, you know what zombies are? No. Zombies are basically these fictional things that come back to life after death. They come and eat your brains and everything. Don't know. Okay, fine. Anyway, it's a scary thing. Okay, understand? It's a not nice scenario when you have zombie eyes. Here, they just assume that, okay, yeah, you have eyes piling up and up and up. It's fine. But then, this ice started melting. And when the ice started melting, so this layer is slowly melting away, melting away, melting away. Certain microorganisms and specifically certain viruses. Virus is a very weird microorganism, guys. Virus, if it is outside in the atmosphere, it's in a very non-living form. It's a very crystallized form. The moment it enters into our body, it gets all energy. It becomes very active. Now, they have found that when this ice started melting, there was the evidences of certain microorganisms, specifically certain viruses that have been crystallized for how many years? 30 to 40,000 years ago. These things were all crystallized and it's there under the soil. So now the ice is melting and who's going to come out? This virus. And this virus is called as zombie virus. This is such a huge threat because 30 to 40,000 years ago, we don't even know what is this thing that is going to come about. Okay, because we still haven't gotten exposed to any of these things. We do not know what kind of microorganisms would have been there. We do not know what kind of diseases they can cause. So this is the reason why this, on one hand, from the environment point of view, we do understand, oh yeah, so there is biosphere there. But the sad part is from the health side of it, we do not know how to deal with this thing that is going to come out. Got it? It's from this part onwards, we started understanding that you cannot include your extremes of north and south pole. You have to include it under biosphere. Why? Because you have life over there in this form. Make sense? Okay. Just a quick recap because we are filled with so much of information right now. I just told you two words: environment, biosphere. Okay? What is, if I'm saying environment out of the blue, what is the first thing that should come to your mind? What is the one word? Surroundings. Okay? If I ask you again, what surroundings? Then what will you ask? Tell me. Biotic, it can have biotic, abiotic, they can interact. If I'm saying biosphere, what's the first thing that will come to your mind? Life. And then if I ask you what is life, then you will say carbon. Yes. Living matter and dead organic matter. Till here, fine. Okay. Next, we go into another. Online, guys, is it clear till here? Good job. Yes, highest mountain. Again, Aishwarya, highest mountain, deepest ocean, in both of these places, you are seeing life right now. Okay. So, yes. Fine. Okay. Next, we come across a word called as habitat. Okay. So, this is from here onwards, things get a little bit more interesting. First of all, have you heard this word, habitat? Yeah? What according to you is habitat? Don't read this definition and tell me. Huh? Where people live. People. Only people. Organisms. Okay. Where organisms live. So now I just told you what is this live. Stay. In the minute she's changing the definition. Huh? It's a region in the environment. Okay. Fine. Thrive. What is thrive? Survive. Okay. What is survive? What do you need for survival? Only water. Then air, temperature. So some conditions are needed. Okay, let's start off because we have very similar words coming. There is one thing called as habitat. There's another thing called as territory, range, etc. First, let's understand what's habitat. Habitat is basically the physical environment. Physical environment. Physical means what? What is going to be there? You have, as he said, some conditions. For what? For an organism to live. So now the question comes, how do we define this further? I'm just telling you it's the physical environment in which organisms live. To understand this, I want you to get the point. He was just telling me what are the conditions we need to live. Just take your case. What all do you need? Air, okay. Water, okay. Basic conditions. I'm not doing too much luxury, okay. So air, water, sunlight, okay, food. That's it. Temperature. Okay, let's just put all the temperature and sunlight and all correlated to over here, because based on your sunlight is where you have temperature and all that. Anything else? What? Huh? Shelter is habitat. Land. Who said land? Okay. By land, did you mean space? Huh? Like for example, you are sitting over here. Okay. You're sitting here and then you have food, air. But if there is that guy coming and sitting on your lap, will you like it? Why? Because you need your space. You need your own space also. So now coming into habitat. Habitat is basically the area where you can survive. You can survive. Survive means you get your basic necessities for life. Okay. So in your habitat, you might not have air condition like this. But you will have basic conditions. You can have water, you can have food, all of those things. So a habitat primarily means it's the physical environment in which an organism lives. To make it a little bit more specific, if I take any living organism, a plant, an animal, a microorganism, all of them need conditions to live. If they don't have conditions to live, what will happen? They will become dead organic matter. So, if your habitat is not giving you all the conditions you need, what is going to happen? Your survival is threatened. So, what do? You might find another area where you might get the necessary conditions. Right? I'm telling you all this so that you get the point where, let's take a habitat. Can you give me the example? Do you guys have a habitat? Yeah, your home maybe? Your home or your PG or wherever you're staying is your habitat. Okay. What happens when, so you took one single room. Okay. And let's say that for the sake of our understanding over here, that your survival primarily is to study UPSC. This is basically right only, no? No, okay. Now, when it comes to this, if the food one day at the PG, it got over, you will find it, okay, fine, I'll adjust. 2-3 days, it's getting over. What will happen to you? You will start feeling a little bit tired. After some time, you're going to be like, no, this is not working for me. Okay, so food can be compromised. Water can be compromised. Now, you booked a single room. In the single room, they're putting 3-4 other people. Will you like it? No. Leave the factor of like it. Will your survival be threatened? That's my question. What is your survival? Studying for UPSC. Each one has a different kind of survival. So if studying for UPSC is your survival and there are 3-4 other people coming in, there's so much of noise and everything, there's space getting invaded, will you be able to survive in those conditions? No. That is your case. Now when it comes to animals also, when it comes to plants also, each of them need this kind of a physical environment. What is physical environment? All of these things. Air, water, food, sunlight. And then space. So if they ask you a one-line definition, habitat is a physical environment where an organism can live. If they ask you what is this physical environment, it is air, water, sunlight, food and all the other things. If these things, even if one of them is not met, the survival of the organism becomes threatened. Fine? Okay. Keep this in mind. This is your habitat. Now I'm going to introduce you to 2 more words. And let's think about it. There is another word that we have to familiarize with called as territory. Territory. Have you heard this? Territory. Okay. See, habitat is necessary for survival. Habitat is the most crucial point that is there. Territory is something that you decide. See, you are a human being, you have certain conditions that would be your habitat. But now, for example, she's sitting over there. Okay. In the morning, she comes, she sits, she takes her bag and puts it on the side. Why do you do that? You are like, don't come too close, this is my area. And then she'll put one more bag on the other side, saying that's for my friend. You cannot sit there. What have you done right now? You have marked your territory. You have marked your territory somehow. You're like, see, this is my area. I don't want any interaction happening over here. You please go and sit somewhere else. Got it. So, but at the end of the day, this is entirely your habitat. Now, for example, if you're taking four people over here, they all are sharing the same habitat. But each of them has what? An individual territory. Who decides the territory? Is someone else coming and telling you, no, you cannot, you have to maintain this space? No. Who's deciding the territory? Whoever is the organism, that organism is deciding the territory. Why is territory needed? Is territory important? For sitting in first row, what? Notice. Why is territory important? Okay, let's leave them. Think of some bigger organism. Tiger. Do tigers mark territory? Leave tiger. You would have seen this for sure. Dogs. Do dogs mark territory? Have you seen how batshit crazy they go when you just try to cross their territory? What, you will just be going in a normal scooty and suddenly they'll just start chasing you. Why? Because you look chaseable? No. It's because they have marked the territory and suddenly this new thing that they don't know. See, they are not like, oh, it's an Activa, so I will not chase. Okay? Or it's an Enfield, nice, I will chase. That is not what they're doing. According to this organism, what is happening? It's something coming to attack them. According to the animal, it's something that's coming to threaten them. It's something that's coming to maybe cause harm to them. So they're like, no, let's fight back. Let's chase them. Understand? So now think about it. Why do you need a territory? To safeguard, to maybe protect yourself. Okay? To protect yourself, you can mark territory. To fight off anything that's coming in. So when you protect yourself and something comes into that territory, what's going to happen? You can fight back. Got it? So most of the organisms that we know create territories. Why? Because obviously if you want to survive in nature, you have to protect yourself. And to protect yourself, you need to create clear boundaries. Fine? Makes sense? So just a point to ask you, will the territory of an organism always be in its habitat? Think about it. First, the organism needs to survive. Then only protection is coming. For survival, what you need? Habitat. First, you ensure you have basic survival. Then you go into the next level, which is protection. So let me ask you that question again. For an organism, will the territory always be in the habitat? Yes. Because if you have a habitat only, you will get basic conditions. If you're not getting food and water and everything, just protection is not going to help you. Why? Because what do you need at the first stage? At the first stage, you need food, all of those basic conditions we mentioned. This is your first stage. The second stage is protection. For the first stage, you need a habitat. And this habitat, is it only yours? Will it be shared by other things? Shared, right? You cannot say, for example, you can live in tropical habitat. Lion can live in tropical habitat. Grass can live in tropical habitat. All of them have similar conditions. So what happens? You're habitat is shared. But is your territory shared? No. That's the entire idea about territory. You will not share your territory. Got it? So habitat is a larger space where you have all the basic conditions for life. And in those basic conditions, you have an area for yourself, a space for yourself, which is your territory. Got it? Both of these concepts clear? Okay. Let me ask you one thing. Is there a fixed size for a territory, like from my feet 1 meter away, 1 meter away? Is there a fixed size? Nothing like that. For different organisms, you have different kinds of territory. For example, a carpenter ant, an ant which is, it builds these small nests and everything underground. Their territory is just, it's not even meters, it's few centimeters which is there. Okay. But for a larger predator like a tiger or a panther, the territory would be very large. It will be like several square kilometers in depth. Got it? So what is the idea when you draw so much of a territory? Let me ask you one thing. So take this as a clue and tell me. Yesterday we talked about social animals and solitary animals. Remember? I asked you to do a assignment. I told you some animals are social, some animals are solitary. If an animal is solitary, will its territory be very large or very small? Think of yourself. You don't want to interact with anyone, not with her. You will be here, and what will you do? You might just be like, no, nobody can sit on this bench. So you are solitary. If you're solitary, your territory will be larger. Understand? Solitary means what? You are lone wolf. Just don't want to interact with anyone. I think a lot of introverts could be solitary animals. Okay. So then you just don't want to do anything. You're just like, oh, I just hope when you enter into a metro and all, you're like, I just hope nobody comes and sits next to me. Or nobody starts a conversation with me. You all are very social animals, huh? Then why are you not talking in the class if you're so social? According to me right now, most of you are very solitary. Okay. So you are like, I don't want to interact. I don't want to talk. Now think of an animal like maybe a tiger or something, and it's drawing such a huge territory. What's the meaning of it? It is likely to be a solitary animal. Now, there was no previous question asked on this. I'm just hinting you towards it. They could very well ask you a question relating these two concepts. If it's a social animal, you are more likely to find smaller territories. But if it's a solitary animal, you are likely to find larger territories where they don't have to. Because if you are solitary, you will constantly keep fighting against anything that's coming outside. Right? What are we talking about? Okay. Solitary and social animals. So now, let me ask you a few questions. Just give me the answers quick. Okay. There is habitat, there is territory. We've done environment and biosphere. Can a habitat be shared? Yes. Can a habitat be shared by different biotic factors? Yes. Okay. Then this statement. I'm not saying if it's true or false, but you tell me if it's true or false. Many habitats make an environment. Yeah? So can you give me an example for it? If I'm taking a forest which is there, you can have, in that forest itself, you can have smaller habitats which are there. Okay? If I'm taking a large environment, I'm saying tropical environment, there I'll have forest, grassland, I'll have different kinds of habitats over there. Do habitats always have to be this formally defined like forest, grassland, etc.? No. It can be any physical environment where you get basic necessities. Okay. So, territory is done, habitat is done. Now I have to introduce you to one more word, and that word is called as home range. Home range. Okay. I'm going to take your example over here for this, not your one. When in the PG conditions I was telling about, what's your habitat? You have a habitat which is maybe your entire PG. Okay? And in your PG, you have your room or anything. So what happens if I had to mark a territory over there? Your room will be your territory. You will not be like, you will be like, if someone else comes, be like, no, you please stand outside, put your slippers and all out, and you stand outside. You don't want anyone to enter your room. You all are not like this. Huh? Oh, you're social animals, no? So you will have all the time people in your room. So you are marking a territory, which is your room, or leave the room. If it's a room that's shared by 2 or 3 people, what will you do? You will again mark a territory where you are saying that, see, this is my bed, this is my study table, and I don't want anyone to come in that area. Okay, see, I am like that only. I don't know about you guys. I'm talking from human experience. Okay, so this is the area that I will mark as a territory, but this entire PG is your habitat. Now, leave the PG part. Now, you have to come to your institute over here. So, there is an institute. Then you have to eat your food. Okay. So, then there is one small place over there to eat your food. Okay. And then you have to go back to your PG. Okay. Now, I just want you to think for a moment and tell me, if you had to mark the habitat over here, which would be the habitat? Is it just your PG? No. Think about it now. So if you are in a PG and everything's over here and this is in the Chandra layout area, Chandra layout becomes your habitat. Okay? This entire area becomes your habitat because you have several things placed inside. Your one place is your home, another place you have your studies, then you have your food somewhere, etc. So this entire area is your habitat. In that habitat, your room is your territory. And this new word that I'm going to introduce you, which is your home range. Home range is the area where you constantly have your activities. Your daily activities. What is your daily activities over here? So, for example, from PG to the institute. From the institute to the place that you eat. From the place that you eat to your PG back. This area which you constantly use is called as your home range. Okay, so to define it, home range is the amount of space an animal uses on a regular basis. Got it? So your example you understood. Now think about like a tiger. Okay, so now in the case of a tiger, the tiger has marked its territory and all. That's all fine. Okay. So now when the tiger wants to look out for food, it'll go even further than its territory. It'll get out of its territory, it'll look around for food. Then it'll get the food. Then it might eat it there, maybe drag it back. All of them, maybe on the way it'll feel thirsty, it'll go to a river, drink water. All of that area that the tiger uses is its home range. Okay. So you have a habitat, you have a home range, and then you have a territory. Are you able to picturize this? You have a very large area, which is the habitat of an organism. In the habitat, there are specific areas, okay, where the animal relies on its food, water, etc. So there's a home range. And apart from all that, there is a territory that it holds for itself, where it will keep protecting its boundaries. Make sense? Fine? Not fine? Yeah? Okay. Yeah. Now, for a minute, let's put you all as forest officers. Okay, you are a forest officer and you want to count. You want to get an exact number of the, let's not take tiger. Tell me another animal. Bigger one. Elephants. Okay. You want to get a number of the elephants in a forest area. Okay. And you are the forest officer. Now, my question is, out of these three measures, there are three measures. There is home range, there is territory, and there is habitat. Out of these three measures, which one will give you a very accurate number of the species? Why? It is? Exactly. It is regularly used and it's very specific. So, for example, you have 5 elephants. Okay. Maybe let's say that 5 elephants placed in different parts of the forest. Each of them will have a home range of its own. Got it. So, there is no double counting or anything. So, each one elephant is like, okay, I'm bamboo eater. I have to go get the bamboo. I'll go to this river. They have a specific home range. But if I'm taking a large habitat, what happens is, I might likely to be counting it 2 or 3 times. The same elephant itself, I'll be like, okay, 1, then again I'll count it again, second time. So there are only in actuality only 5 elephants in that area. But by the time I'm counting for the habitat, I am likely to double count these numbers. But if it's a home range, I'm just following the specific activities that is done by each species. So I'm likely to get a more accurate measure if I am going by the home range. Got it? But unfortunately, in India, we don't count with home range. We are counting areas with habitat. Okay? This is the reason why in a lot of cases, they say that whenever, for example, a tiger census comes out or a snow leopard census comes out, they will not give you one number. They will say that this is the average number, then there is a higher number and there is a lower number. Why are they putting that error margin? They're putting the error margin because there is a possibility that there could have been some populations which are double counted. Understand? So in India, we are looking at species in a habitat. We count species in a habitat. But ideally, home range is a better measure. Make sense? Yeah? Okay, let me ask you a few things. See, the reason why habitat becomes important is because of 2 things. What happens when a habitat is destructed? There are so many species for which habitats gets destructed. I'll just give you an example. Every time, have you seen in some periods and all, they give this report that says that they observed a leopard in this Banargata region. In Electronic City, they've observed some leopard and tiger and panther. You've not seen the news? It happens quite frequently. Is it that the leopard and tiger is coming for some visit? Why do you think that keeps happening recurrently? Exactly. This is an important thing to understand. See, you have a home range of an animal where it used to do its daily activities, and you have a larger habitat also. Okay. When we encroach certain areas, okay, we are likely to encroach into what? Obviously, we are encroaching into the habitat. We are also encroaching into some animal's home range. Okay, when we are building these new buildings and developing and everything, we are actually encroaching into an animal's home range. And home range is what? They visit on a regular basis. Got it? For some time, they might just not come in, but then eventually what is again going to happen? They will try to chart their home range again. For them, it is not like, oh, this is a prestige flat or a DLF flat. For them, it is just home range. Got it? So, this is the reason why in a lot of instances, you do see animals. There are 2 things. There are animals which purposefully come into the man areas, okay, looking for prey and everything. And then there are animals which enter into living inhabitations because their home range was encroached. It's not even necessary that their habitat is encroached. It's their home range that gets encroached. It's even worse if their habitat is destructed. If their habitat is destructed, it's not just one organism that gets affected. See, home range is specific to one organism. Habitat, as I told you, is shared by many organisms. Okay, you can have the tiger, you can have the deer, whatever is associated with that organism is going to live over there. Which means if you are destructing a habitat, you are destroying the home ranges of several species. And when you destroy the home ranges of several species, what can be the consequence? They will all not come into the land. What else is going to happen? Are you getting what I'm saying? You are destroying habitat. Okay, how are you destroying habitat? You're maybe cutting down the trees, you are maybe, some areas flooded with water, something happens, that entire area is destructed. Yeah, so what starts happening is, when habitat is destructed, the first few conditions I told you, the basic requirements, water, food, sunlight, what I told you, even if one factor is not there, what's going to happen? That species will not survive. So when a habitat is destructed, then you have 5-6 species in that area. Some of them will completely perish. They will die off. Some of them will try to somehow survive. Okay. And when they somehow try to survive, they might have to, for example, this used to be an area which had good amount of water. Now the water is not there. This entire area is now drought struck because of some human activity. The habitat is completely destroyed. There were few species who were dependent on the water. Some of them entirely died. There was maybe one deer species or something, which what happens? It will try to somehow survive. This is where the next part of our class we will discuss about. When these organisms somehow try to survive in crisis is where they try to adapt. They try to somehow adjust to the new conditions. We'll come to that later. But now I want you to understand that habitat destruction can actually lead to the extinction of species. Make sense? So what all do you know about habitat right now? Habitat is fixed for an animal, by the way. Is habitat fixed for an animal? Fixed in the sense that, for example, polar bear, it requires so much amount of temperature, so much amount of water, etc. If you bring the polar bear to the equator, you have to give those conditions. Okay, so habitat's conditions are fixed for organisms. Make sense? Make sense? Have you seen these migratory birds? Like you would have heard, it's coming from, Russia, Siberia, and it's coming to the northeastern part of India. And then from the northeastern part, it'll go to Rajasthan. From Rajasthan, it'll go back to Siberia. Now, my question over here is, what do you define this area then? Is this the home range or the habitat? Home range. Okay? This is the home range of the organism, because this is the area which will give all its conditions necessary for its further movement. So it's all the activities that it is doing. It's the home range that is there. Fine? Okay. You all are too silent, so I have to give you an activity right now to fire you up. Because we are on the migratory species, let's talk about a current affair that's there. Huh? Talk anything you want. We don't care. Have you heard about this migratory species called as the Amur falcon? Those who haven't heard, hear it now. There is a migratory species called as Amur falcon. Okay. So we're going to do an activity right now. Obviously, when you hear a new thing, what all should you find out about it? What should you find out about the Amur falcon? It's a bird in the first place. It's falcon. Okay. What else? Origins, okay. Then status, okay. Diet of it, okay. And now added to that, I just want you to find the home range of this animal. Not only find, just make a note of it in your notes. Amur falcon. And when you read about this topic, I want you to think, what is the UPSC question or what can be asked from this area? Online, guys, I want you to start putting this info in the chat box. By the way, guys, is your screen clear? For some reason, I'm not able to see the screen clearly over here. Can you just say if your screen is clear? Found out. Amur falcon. That's its origin. Okay, I want you to find the home range. Don't, again, if you type in home range of Amur falcon, you will not get the answer. Okay, so don't try shortcuts like that. Read about it and you figure out what the home range is. Online, guys, I need you to respond over here. Is the visual clear? Because it's very blurred to me over here. Can you hear the audio and see the visuals clearly? I need you to respond. Okay. In that case, put out your facts about the Amur falcon here. Okay, have you collected the facts related to the Amur falcon? Can we compile it? See, any of these things that I ask you to do in class, in my classes, you have to bring your current affair notes along with your thing. So, if I'm asking you to find something about a current affair, rather than writing that in your general notes, put it into your current affair notes. Understand? So, carry your environment current affair area wherever you're writing it every day to class. Found? Okay, what do we know about the Amur falcon now? Okay. China. Good, Rashmi. Now, Southeastern Siberia. Good, good, very good. Good job. Okay, done? Do a little bit, see, I gave you Amur falcon. So first you collect all the basic details. I hope you have also checked Amur falcon in Indian news and gone through the news articles that are there. Then only you will understand. See, there are so many other migratory birds. Why would I ask you this one very specific thing? It's something related to the news also. Yeah, so check that. Done? I'll give you one activity, then you are immersed. Here, look, start. Done, Amur falcon. What is there to discuss so much? It's such a small bird. In fact, it is the smallest of those praying birds, I guess, isn't it? Okay, can you tell me the facts of Amur falcon? I've already got the home range from one of the people in the class and in the online portal, online chat also. It travels. What a bird. 22,000 kilometers. It's like those, no strings attached. Can we, guys, please give me some attention here. Okay, let's discuss about Amur falcon. I don't want you to create this entire PhD thesis on it. Let's start off with, where is it seen? Where is its origin? Home. Okay, starts from Siberia. Let's keep it there. Then what is its status? Please concern? Yeah, okay. Then what is its diet? Insects. Okay. Then now based on your this thing, is it solitary or social? What is it? So, okay. It's social. Now the next question, is it nocturnal, diurnal? Each day when you learn new things, that should be part of your information collection. Is it nocturnal or diurnal? I remember it to be nocturnal. I just want you to clarify again. Check again. Just, these are factual things. Huh? You are saying diurnal, no? It's okay. Nocturnal. Bro, nocturnal. Have you checked again? Why did you say? Because you are the only one who's saying diurnal. That's why I'm asking. Did you read it somewhere, or you thought, okay, this bird deserves to be out in the day? Yeah? Not checking. Checked? Nocturnal diurnal. Did you read somewhere? No, you just guessed it. Okay, fine. It's nocturnal. Okay. Okay, so it's social, it's nocturnal. Anything else that you want to add to its basic features? Okay, breeding thing. Okay, fine. Anything else? Any other features? I read somewhere it's one of the smallest birds of prey in this falcon family. I don't know, it's a past memory. So anyway, so these features are there. What's the home range? Come on. Now you tell me. From Siberia, from what's happening to the bird? Siberia to northern China. Northern China, then India, then south and what are you saying? Same thing. South and eastern. So this is the home range. Okay, so it goes all the way and then goes back to Siberia. Okay, it doesn't stay in Africa, it goes back to Siberia, and this is the entire home range of it. Okay, so we've covered two things. We've covered the basic details, we've covered the home range. Now do you also understand, whenever, see, when UPSC wants to ask you questions, it's not that on one day they thought, let's ask where this animal is living, where this animal's home range is. It's all there in the syllabus. Ideally, when you learn an animal or an organism, you have to learn these features. Is it nocturnal, diurnal? If it's solitary, social. If it's, what is the kind of food it eats? Is it, for example, if some organisms have a very weird way of making their nest. Okay. So if that can be a question, that can be asked like that. So all of this is done. Why was there in news? Least concern. IUCN, okay, you were not there yesterday. IUCN is an international, yeah. My question, third point, why was it there in news? It's located in Northeast. There's conservation measures of it happening. Now, when it comes to India, there is a very specific thing over here. In India, it primarily comes to the northeastern side. Okay, northeastern means you have states of Meghalaya, Nagaland, Assam. Primarily these three areas. It's so important in these areas that in certain villages of Nagaland, it comes into certain villages. I think it was Duyong or something, that's the name of the village. They celebrate the arrival of this bird. There is an entire festival associated with the arrival of this bird. Okay, so there are tribes and there are festivals associated in India with the arrival of this bird. That is what thing that you have to look. Second important thing is, this bird may be of least concern. Least concern means the number of populations are quite good all around the world. Okay. But when this bird comes into India, in the northeastern side, this bird is constantly hunted. Okay. It's constantly hunted. And now, very recently, in the last few months, each of these individual governments of Assam, Meghalaya, etc., they have put a complete ban on the killing of these birds. Okay. That is why this bird was in news. So when the bird is in news in this aspect, what all you have to know? You have to know all of these features also. Got it? Fine? Are you seeing how the subject is so interconnected with current affairs? It's not like your other areas where, for example, in economy, you study inflation. Inflation as a question can come. Maybe they can ask a current affair. But here, most of the current affair and your static part is like mixed together. If you know the static part only, you might be able to answer a current affair question. Got it? You want a break? Huh? Or you are like, no, we will sit stagnant like this only. Huh? Break. For what? We'll talk after that. After break, will you come back a little bit more energy? No. Sit here only. Wow. You guys will not survive in habitat destruction and all, okay? You are not voicing your needs. Do you want a break? Go take a break. And come back in 10 minutes. Come back, if possible, with a little bit more life. Okay? Okay. So, we were doing habitat. We spoke about environment. And we spoke about territory, home range, etc. Let me just ask you one thing. After your understanding of all of these things, I told you to define an environment. To define an environment, do I necessarily need a living organism? Not necessarily. The question is, to define an environment, do I need a reference point? Like saying like, okay, it's the environment of something. Is it necessary? No, I can say this is an environment even without me over there. You remember, that's the first thing I told you. Okay? It's not necessary that you should have a biotic component. The question is to define a habitat. Is it necessary to have a biotic component? Yes or no? Huh? No, it's not necessary to define habitat. Yeah. I'm asking, to define a habitat, is it necessary to have a living organism? Yes? Right? Because what is habitat? Habitat is basically the physical environment of a living organism. If you don't have the living organism, then there is no definition of habitat only. Got it? So, one thing to remember over here is, this is one important point. This is a diversion that is, I mean, you know, when they have to ask you a difficult question, this is something that they pick upon. To define a habitat, I need a living organism. But to define an environment, I necessarily do not need a living organism. Makes sense? This is clear? So, if this is clear, let's read few statements in the next slide and see if these are correct or not. First one. A habitat always has life in it, whereas the environment does not necessarily have life in it. What do you think? Life here is just normal life. We're talking about living organisms here. Yes. Why? Because a habitat, I just told you, can only be defined. That is what you guys missed at this point. A habitat will or can be defined only with respect to a living organism. A habitat can be defined only with respect to a living organism. So that means when you have life, then only you have habitat. So the statement that says a habitat will always have life in it, that part is correct. Second part is what? Whereas the environment does not necessarily need to have life in it. Which means what? Even if there's just abiotic factors over there, I can define an environment. Make sense? Okay, fine. Then, the first statement, this is where I want you to think and tell me. All habitats are, don't mug up this statement, guys. All habitats are environments, but all environments are not habitats. Break the sentence and think. First, take the first part. All habitats are environments. Meaning what? Is it correct? Yeah. So why? Because if you take any habitat, what is the thing? It should have the physical environment which is there. Right? It should have water, air, food, whatever is there. You will have the physical environment. So all habitats are environments, or they have a part of the environment. But on the other hand, are all environments habitats? No, not necessarily. Why? Because you can have several environments. In some of them, you will have life. In some of them, you will not have life. Only the one which has life is considered as a habitat. Make sense? Okay. So these are all statements from previous UPSC questions. Okay. They've asked these in multiple times. They've asked these statements in confusing manners. But the moment you understand the fact that for an environment, you can have biotic factors, abiotic factors, and they might interact. That is a just possibility there. But in the case of a habitat, you should compulsorily have a living organism. Make sense? Okay. Now the last statement, the environment governs the properties of a habitat. Does that make sense? The environment governs the properties of a habitat. What is the properties of a habitat? Yeah, the air, water, the temperature, everything is the properties of a habitat. How is that there? Because of a lot of other conditions around it. Which means that if I'm taking this as my habitat. I'm having air over here, I'm having water over here. How did the water come over there? The water came over there through all this evaporation, condensation, all of these different processes. That is not just happening in that small area. That's happening in your larger environment. Whatever is the environment determining. If it's an environment which is having high sunlight, the water will evaporate more. There will be more rain, and that rain will fill the water in the ponds and oceans and everything which is there in this small habitat. Got it? So the final statement that says the environment governs the properties of the habitat. Understood? Yeah? So now you will not get confused with this, because the point is they can ask this in several tricky manners. Clear till here? Okay. If all this is clear, then the next thing we go on to discuss is this. See, when we have to study different organisms, or when we have to study about the environment that is there, we have to, like for example, you want to study UPSC. How will you study? You will not be like, okay, you will have a separate organ, like, you will take one subject. In that one subject, you will read one book of it. Like for example, if I'm telling you have to study polity. So in polity, what will you do? There are 3 books. And then one book you take and you start studying. Then you make notes of it. What are you doing? You're planning and you're organizing the entire thing. Similarly, if I have to study about an environment, I have to organize it in terms that we can understand. And this is what is called as the different levels of organization. Okay. Now, how many of you started doing the pre-work? The NCERT reading? Okay. So I'm hoping the class 10th one, is it fine to read? Yeah, it's pretty simple, right? How many of you are done with the class 10th? I'm not expecting you to go, you're done. Oh, nice. Okay. Okay. Class 10th is done. So you probably would get started on class 11th. in the weekend or something. Okay. At this point, I want you to understand, when you get started on that class 11th book, there is something called as taxonomic classification. Taxonomic classification. Now, that is a different kind of classification, where, for example, we all belong to a category called as Homo sapiens. So, they divide species, like for example, you have something called as species, then you have genus, then you have family, order, class, and phylum. Okay, that you write. That's on top. Cannot reach to there. Okay, kingdom. Okay, at the top it's kingdom. That's animal kingdom, plant kingdom. Okay. So now, when we talk about this, that is another kind of classification where we have done to study things in a better manner. So when we talk about this, we'll understand species means, and sometimes species might have even subspecies. That's also there. Okay. So for example, species over here is we all are belonging to the same species, which is Homo sapiens. Then if you look at genus, you might belong to a bigger category where you will have Homo sapiens, you might have other animals also included in it. Okay. Now, once all of this is done, that helps you to study how these organisms are arranged in the environment. Once you know that, this is all with respect to one organism itself, I can say all of these things. When I take one individual and I'm putting it into the environment, there also I have different levels of classification. So there's one individual. That's the first thing. Okay. Now, individuals of the same species coming together. Can you just look at that diagram over there? In that first one, there is one orange color, one fish over there. In the next one, several orange color fish, which means what? I've shown you that diagram primarily to have this in your mind. It's the same kind of fish. It's the same species, but more in number. And that's called as a population. Okay, we say human population, tiger population. Why do we add that word? Because you are counting the number of individuals in that species. Understand? Understood? Yeah? Sure? Let me ask you one question. So population, when I am saying, first question is, will I have only one kind of species in one thing's population? If I'm saying tiger population, I'm going to count only tiger population. I will not be like, oh yeah, but tiger and cat belong to the same family. I will count cat also. No. That is a different population. Okay. So in our levels of organization, the first one starts with individual. When you put individuals of similar kind together, you get population. So what are the primary conditions of a population? They have to be individuals of similar kind. And what is similar kind? Similar species. Okay. You can count, like for example, there is the population of this class currently. Okay. There was a population. So when I'm counting the population, one more factor is important, which is the time. At this particular time, what is the population of this class? Okay. Maybe when 3 of you get outside, the population will change. In the next 5 minutes, if 3 of you are moving outside the class, the population will change. So understand, population is the number of individuals of the same species. You can count it in a defined area and you can count it in a specific time. I'm using the word can here. It's not necessary that you should count it in a specific area or specific time. Understand? Understood. Population. Okay. So associated with this, there are few current affairs which is there. One, not a current affair, I would say, but something that has been there. So in India, regularly when it comes to the environment sphere, we do population counts. Just like humans have census, we do census of tigers, snow leopards, different species, lions, elephants, all of these are subjected to census. Okay. Now, certain species, for example, the snow leopard census, that's a current affair that is there, which you are going to again make a note of right now on. So get your phones out. Snow leopard census. It's a contemporary affair. Not even I think it happened before. It was happening last Feb time, I guess. So it's again current affair. I guess just leave the date part. I don't want you to tell me what date it came about. But India conducted the first ever snow leopard census, and that is why it's important. Got it? It's not like we are counting tigers every time. It's the first ever snow leopard census that had happened in India. So that is important. Apart from that, any other time we count the tigers of our country, which is the tiger census, that is also important. So what are you going to first do? I want you to first go into the snow leopard census. When you go into the snow leopard census, first thing I want to know is how many snow leopards are there? Okay, where all did they find it? Is there any methodology that they have used to count it? When will the next snow leopard census be, if you're finding any info about that? First, let's do the snow leopard census. Found. You found the snow leopard, you looked at its picture and all that. Okay. How many snow leopards? How many? 720. 780. Okay. Since you found out the number 718, out of the 718, which state in India has the highest? Ladakh. Then is India the world's highest snow leopard nation, like the highest population of snow leopard in the world? Is it in India? No, that does not answer my question. India has 10 to 15, okay. So now you tell me, is it the highest in the world? So that's a fact that you have to maybe collect, right? Does India... China has the highest. How many does China have? 2000. Oh, they're also leading. So India is not the highest. Is India the second highest? Third highest? Is it coming in top 5? If it's coming in top 5 only, it's worth learning. Don't, if it's in some 8th, huge list, no? Okay, so India is not there in the top 5 of the highest Asian other countries. So India is not there in the top 5 highest snow leopard nations, right? Okay, remember that fact. That you don't need to know India's rank. You just need to know India is not top 1 or in the top 5. Got it? So India has other rank and all that. That and all is irrelevant. Okay. So 718 snow leopards, mostly in Ladakh. What other information do you have from the census? Which are the areas in India it's occurring in? Ladakh, Himachal, Uttarakhand, did you guys not find Himachal? Himachal Pradesh, Sikkim in the northeastern side, and then Arunachal, Jammu and Kashmir. Anything, any other northeastern state? No, right? So remember this. The question will not be about Uttarakhand, Himachal and Jammu and Kashmir or Ladakh. It will be about the northeastern states, because there are only 2 states in the northeast where you see the snow leopards, Sikkim and Arunachal. Got it? So very easily in that list they can add Assam and Meghalaya, and we'll just be like, oh yeah, it's all in the northeast, so maybe they are there. But no, snow leopard needs snow, snow leopard needs high altitude which is there, and you will find it only in Sikkim, Arunachal area in the northeast. Okay, so that is done. In the census, any idea when the next census will be? Every 4 years. Good job. Okay. Any specific methodology they used for this? Camera traps. Okay. What is camera traps? Did anyone check that? Be inquisitive, guys. If you hear a word that you do not know, just Google it. Just ask ChatGPT what it is. What's a camera trap? Huh? What do you think will be a camera trap in a census? He'll just look at it. It's basically a sensor activated camera which is there. Whenever the organism moves, the camera takes the pictures of it. So that you know there's some motion associated and you take the pictures of it. Okay. So camera trap was used. So I guess with respect to the census, this much information is only needed. When it comes to the species, why was the snow leopard census so necessary? What is its status? Vulnerable. What is its diet? It's carnivores. Then, solitary or social? Don't with one. I know half of you are like, okay, it's only one snow leopard's picture, so maybe it's solitary. Check if it's moving in herds, is it moving in packs, etc. Is it solitary? Is it nocturnal, diurnal? Yeah, this should go without me asking you this every time. Check it quickly. Huh? Solitary. Okay. Then, nocturnal, diurnal. Huh? Any nocturnal? Sure. And finally, which one of you at least put the extra effort to check snow leopard in Indian news? Do you find anything extra there? Huh? Conservation measures, yeah, okay. Any specific protected area that they are mentioning? Any national park, any wildlife sanctuary? Hemis National Park in Ladakh has one of the highest numbers of your Hemis. Which one? Ishwak National Park. What is the news? Not very well. Anything important other than that? That's it. Okay. See, you will see several news. Guys, just give me just listen to this now. So when you check the news, you're going to see several news articles which says that 36 snow leopards found in that area, 4 found in this area. So you find several news. But now snow leopards in India are seen in Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, Sikkim, Arunachal and Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh also. If at all a new state where they have discovered snow leopard comes, that is what is important for you, because these other numbers, you don't have to learn the individual news that says 36 were found over there, 14 were found over there. You don't need to learn that, because all through the year that news is going to repeatedly come. Several snow leopards might be found in any of these states, because these are snow leopard high states. But in the very rare instance where a snow leopard sighting is there in a state other than the ones that is there in the list, that becomes important. That is a current affair you have to learn. Got it? Okay. So this part is done. Are you guys getting a grip on how to do this current affair thing? That is why I'm taking up these different news. Okay, so snow leopard census is done. Then comes to the main census that happens in India, the tiger census. It's like one full festival when the tiger census comes, because why? This entire newspaper will be about all the analysis of this, etc. So let's have a quick note on the last tiger census that we had. When did we have the last tiger census? See, I'm again urging you, whatever you type first, and that when you do Google right now, that first there's an AI generated news that comes. Don't read that and conclude your facts. AI is still in training. Okay? They'll give you some stupid facts. Please read some article which is there below it. Don't just read the AI thing and just blurt out answers. When was the last tiger census? Some people had it in 2020. 2022. So this is the fact that you have to take. Don't take any other previous tiger census. First fact is, in this census, you will not get a fixed number of tigers. They will say there was an average number, there's a highest number, etc. What I want you to tell me is, just keep a note of the average number of tigers that they have observed. What is the average? Are you all concurring on the number 3682? I'm asking for the average number of tigers in India. 3682. What's the highest? Just 3925. See, you cannot remember the exact numbers. So just remember 3600 to 3900. This is the range. Okay. Highest that they counted was 3900, but because there is an error margin, 3682. Okay. In this 3682, the state, yes, the state which has the highest is Madhya Pradesh, then Karnataka, then who said Kerala? Madhya Pradesh, Karnataka, which is the third state? Why am I hearing Maharashtra, Kerala? I'm hearing all different states. Third state, Uttarakhand. Concluded? I'll leave till 3. We don't want the rest, okay? See, I'm telling you this because you cannot study all of these things. Remember, at the end of the day, you'll even just remember Madhya Pradesh. Maybe you might even remember Karnataka as second. So Madhya Pradesh has how many tigers? Okay, this much is fine. Okay, this much is fine. The next fact when it comes to tigers and see, the snow leopard census was the first in the country. Okay, so you need to know, you would not compare it with anything. But tiger census happens in India in how many years? Every 4 years. So the last tiger census was sometime in 2008. 2018. 4 years. Okay, we'll come to that fact. My question is there any fact that says how much has the tiger population in India improved? Yeah, how much is the percentage? 6.7. So from that fact is important. Normally I don't ask people to study, but then this is a very huge proud fact for the country. We have increased in 4 years, we've had an increase of 6.7%. Roughly 7%. Roughly 7% increase in the number of tigers that are there in the country. So this is popularized as a very important fact. So keep that in mind. Here, 7%. Okay, so that's done. Now, one person was mentioning, what is the global situation when it comes to India? The tigers. Does India have the highest number of tigers in the world? Yeah? Highest? Which country comes second? Okay, so India is first, then you have Russia. India first. Okay. With respect to the census, then the last thing that is needed is, what methodology did we use for counting the census in the recent census? Okay, yes, camera trap. Anything else? Double sampling method, camera trap. Did anyone read a method called as pugmark? Pugmark methodology. Yeah, so this is quite controversial right now, guys. Pugmark. There is, in this recent census, okay, hear me out, guys. One minute. Okay. So in the recent 2022 census, we have used different methods for calculating the number of tigers. There is obviously the most famous one, the camera trap. Then you've had a physical counting one. Then you've had double sampling. One other method which has been in use from 1960s onwards in counting the tigers in our country is your pug mark method. Okay, it's controversial now because, so from 1960s, what is pug mark? The footprint of the animal. The footprint of the animal. So let's quickly understand, when you take the footprint of the animal, what all details can you get from it? Obviously the population you can get. What else? Kind of tiger means? Like, can I understand maybe the age of the tiger? Okay, so he's saying different breeds of it, maybe different subspecies of it we can maybe understand. I am asking you, can you understand the gender, the sex of it? Yes? No? Yes? You can. You can understand the weight. Just jot this down, because this is the most oldest technique that we've used in the population census of animals in our country. Okay, you can get the breed of it. You can get the gender of it. Okay, how so? Because see, based on if it's a male or a female, the weight of the animal differs. The gait means the way you walk, G-A-I-T. The gait of it changes, etc. So you can get the weight, the gait, the breed, the age. You can get the age based on how much force is there, how much, expanse is there. You can understand, yeah, young or mature or old, all of these things. You can get the age of the animal. All of these things you can calculate or you can understand with the pug mark. Doubt? But can you tell me what's the problem with this method? You leave double counting. It's double, triple, multiple counting. So much so that from 1960s onwards, for a really long time, we didn't even realize our tigers were endangered because we kept counting the same tiger again and again and again. Okay, why? Because the pug mark will give you these features, but the pug mark is very similar between species. Okay, so they were not able to do this. This is the reason why, because the pug mark was considered as a flawed method, is where we have camera traps and double sampling right now. Okay, why have I told you this? This keeps repeatedly coming in news. You will hear this word repeatedly. 3 years back or something, there was an issue where in Uttarakhand, there was this man-eater tiger on the loose. Okay, and when we'll study very soon that when you have these kind of problems, like a man-eater tiger on the loose and everything, you will get permission to maybe tranquilize the animal or maybe even kill the animal. Okay, not we. There's an officer called as a chief wildlife warden. He gets the permission. So obviously when this man-eater tiger was on the loose, everyone said that based on the pug mark and everything, they did a calculation and they said that this is a female tiger which is there on the loose. And they did the hunting and they killed a female tiger also because it was quite dangerous. But the man-eating did not stop. And that is when they realized that this pug mark counting was flawed. The pug mark analysis was also wrong and it was actually a male tiger which was on the loose. Got it? So there are a lot of controversies surrounding it, but still we are using it also. Okay, this is the reason why you need to know about this population counting method. Fine? It was a small thing, population, but you do see how it can be related to your current affairs. So there is population and 2 different current affairs associated with it. Fine? Clear? Okay. Now go back to the diagram which we had learned, and here is where, so first was one individual orange fish, individual. Next thing is, after that they all different kinds of that same species came together and I called it as population. What are you observing in this third term which is called as community? What all are you seeing there? Yeah, you're seeing different kinds of fish. Now there is an orange fish, there is one blue one, there's a jellyfish, and there's a crab and there's plant also. Right? So from that picture, what could be the definition of community? Is that interaction? Am I showing any interaction? They're just showing some living organisms over there. Okay. Habitat sharing. Okay, what was you? Huh? Different organisms maybe sharing a habitat. Could that be? Community is a group of different, it can be different individuals, different species, let's put it species, different species inhabiting common habitat. Okay. See, even if you forget the entire definition, try to recollect that picture, because if you recollect the picture, the definition will come to you naturally. Got it? So in your community, I didn't show you any other factors or anything. I was just showing you different organisms which was there. There was some plant, there were few other animals, they all are there together. So it's basically a group of different kinds of species existing together. Okay. This is where I want to talk about something. See, when you normally look into the world today, you can see different kinds of communities. I'm not talking about human communities. I'm talking about communities in your natural world. So we are one species. We coexist with other animals and plants, right? In your locality, you would have a tree over there, you would have grass near you, you have a dog and a cat, and sometimes you have cows on the road. We all are one community. We all live, coexist together. Understand? So my point is, a community can be something very small in size or very large in size also. Okay? A community can be as small as you, your plants, your dog and everything together, or it can be largely into the society which is there. It can even be larger than that, maybe an entire area for different kinds of organisms. So the point is, a community can be either very small or very large. Based on the size of communities, you can divide it into major communities which are large in size and minor communities which are small in size. Okay, now see, this is one layer of definition for major and minor. It's based on the size. That doesn't end there. Now let's talk a little bit more about this minor community. See, when I'm saying community right now, what's the first words that are coming into your mind? Group of different species. Okay, it's a group of different species inhabiting one area. Okay. That means ideally it should be at least 2 or more species, right? Yeah, because if it's one, then it is not a community. One is just what? Population. If you have one or more training, I know. So, one or more, 2 or more if you have, you can call it a what? Community. Okay. This is where I have to ask you one thing. So, if for example, now it's this rainy season. Okay. Now you would have observed in most of your the windows and the terrace areas and everything. If you're observing, you will see this green color moss-like thing which is there. You've seen it. You know, it's this very algae-like thing which is stuck onto the walls. Okay, now when that algae-like thing is over there, it's this moss thing, and then you will have some ant coming over there. Then there will be some bird coming and picking it. Is that a community? It's a minor community. It's a community in the first place. Leave minor or major. It's a community because you have the primary requirement over there, which is what? 2 or more different species have come together. Okay, so it's a community. And when you look at the size of it, you also conclude it's a minor community. Now my question is, the moment this rain stops, Okay, the moment the rain stops and it's summer season and everything, that green thing will go. It will get dried up. When it gets dried up, will this ant and bird and all have that community again there? No. Which means what? It is a minor community, and the minor community can only exist, or it will not exist for a long period of time. It's very dependent on external factors for its existence. Okay, if it continuously rains, and the rain has nothing to do with this moss, it's not because this moss is growing over there that the rain is coming. Moss is just a consequence of the rain happening. Once the rain stops, this thing is off, and then there is no community. That means one other important factor of a minor community is it is small in size and it is very dependent on the neighboring communities. It's very dependent on the neighboring areas. If some factor changes, this community will stop existing. So many examples of these minor communities are there. For example, leave everything. If you are eating something, okay, and after a point, okay, let's leave the eating part. How many of you have this bread packet at home which goes beyond the expiry date? Every time you buy a bread packet, you're like, yeah, I'll eat it. One day you will eat, then the next bread will be lying over there. Have you noticed after some time, the first time it will turn into some greenish color, then along with the green there is a black color, and then there is the ant and the cockroach and all coming. Is that a community? Yes, it's a community. But the moment the bread gets over, is there a community? No. Understand? So your idea is a minor community can exist just on the go like that, but same way it can perish also. Okay. So if this is a minor community, then what's a major community? For example, a forest. Okay. So you have your trees over there, you have animals, you have reptiles, you have insects, all of them existing together. Is that a community? Yes. It's large in size. It's a major community. Now on maybe for some reason, few days, there is some soil erosion over there. Few days, then the soil gets replenished. Why? Because see, when you have a large community, even if one factor is temporarily not available, somehow the organisms can coexist through cooperation. Why? Because there are several organisms over here. Okay, so for one day, maybe there is some kind of water shortage. Trees can hold the water for some time. You will have some water conservation method. That means temporarily, if there is a factor change over there, the major community will not get affected. But for example, if you are constantly drying up the river and everything, even the major community will die. That's a different case altogether. Got it? But the major point over here, the difference between major and minor is, the minor community is very much dependent on the existing area, and if any factor changes also, it might perish. But when it comes to major community, it's large in size, and even if any factor changes temporarily for a short period of time, it gets compensated. Make sense? No? Yes? Okay. Clear? Clear? So you can say major communities are large sized and relatively independent. Minor communities are small sized and excessively dependent on the surrounding areas. Fine? Okay. They could very well ask you a question having these different communities. They can ask you, like, for example, this, a food item on the floor, maybe a cow dung, a moss, a terrace which is having, they can give you these three different things and they can ask you which amongst this is a minor community. The only clue that you have to put in your head at that point is, if any factor changes quickly, which of these will perish at a very fast rate? Okay. So obviously the size you have to keep in mind. It's a small size thing, and at the same time, if any factor changes, it will perish quickly. Got it? Fine. Since we are here, there's another current affair again associated with this. very recent actually. Because I'm discussing this cow dung as a community, I've written cow dung as a minor community. Okay. What are the organisms? If I'm saying it's a minor community, what are the organisms that are there? Microorganisms. Yeah, so you have bacteria, fungi, different kinds of things. You have microorganisms. Anything else? Okay, you have different insects then. Anything else? Okay. For example, any kinds of worms, your earthworms, any kind of worms that try to inhabit over here. Okay, what is the current affair over here is, out of all the organisms that exist over here, okay, so there's microorganisms, insects, there is worms. Now, one set of organism becomes very important, and this is your current affair. How many of you came across the current affair of the dung beetle? No, huh? You have to realize I am only picking the current affairs which can be important for your exam. Okay, that's because UPSC is now bothered about all this bat and rat and mouse and cat and all that. That is why this species also becomes important. So have a quick look. I don't want the IUCN status and all of this. Okay, I just need you to find what is this dung beetle and why is it so important, or what is the out of all the species that exist over here, microorganisms, worms, etc., this specific species, which is the dung beetle, is extremely crucial for this community to exist. Why? Okay. I need few nature of this organism. Okay, I need you to understand, what is its food, what is it doing over there. Just read and understand it. Yes, come across all this. Got the points? Yeah? What can you tell me about dung beetle? How many of you saw the word tunnelers associated with it? Tunnelers. These organisms are called as tunnelers. What's the meaning of that? Huh? One minute, huh? Yes, yeah. I'll just... Those who came across tunnelers word, what is the meaning? So this can be actually fashioned into these more new kind of UPSC question. The basic functioning of this dung beetle, I hope you understand, dung means it exists only in this animal excreta which is there. Okay. And the important thing about the species, just hear me out, is if you have the species coming in, the dung beetle, what it tries to do is, it tries to create a pathway through this excreta which is there. So for example, if you have a solid excreta, the dung beetle creates its own housing like sort of a thing. It tunnels and tunnels. Tunnel, you understand, no? It digs deeper into it. It digs deeper into this over here and it lays its eggs in this pile which is there. So you have the cow dung and then you have the dung beetle laying its eggs over there. Very soon what's going to happen? The eggs will hatch. Okay, the larvae will come out and the larvae will try consuming this dung itself. So the primary food of this species is eating up the dung. And whenever this dung is eaten up, what is going to happen? You are going to have that whatever excreta, it gets broken down into pieces. It gets broken down, it turns into something and it mixes with the soil. It helps in soil fertility. It helps in nutrient cycling. Whatever is there in this as different chemical compounds or any solid compounds, they all get mixed with the soil. Understand? What happened? Thinking about the dung beetle. What a sad life. It's actually a very, this creature is extremely useful for our earth and its soil composition, because this tries to break down whatever it is, any kind of organic waste. If it's an excreta sort of a thing, the dung beetle acts so quickly. And once the dung beetle, and the reason why it's so important is because once the dung beetle starts its work, then only the other organisms come into the picture. Then only once, for example, this excreta which is there, the dung beetle, once it's not just one beetle will come and tunnel. Several of them will tunnel into this manner. So what happens is, this excreta gets fragmented. Fragmented means it gets broken into pieces. Once it's fragmented, then what happens? The microorganism starts acting on it. Got it? Once it becomes into smaller components is where the microorganisms can easily act on it. So this is the reason why if this community is there with all of these species, the dung beetle is the primary thing in that community. Then you have all the others also coming in. The news surrounding it is actually very trivial. The news is that they found new species of dung beetle in, I don't know, someplace. Where? Assam and Bangalore. Okay. Okay, yeah. So they found it in Karnataka and Assam. That was the news that is there. So again, not very relevant. It's a very common species. But the working of the species is quite interesting for you to get to know. Fine? Okay? Is this fine for you, like static and current affair? Because I'm pretty sure you will not read this current affairs and all later by yourself. So I am as well covering it along with the class. Is the pace of the class fine? See, if you have any issues with respect to the pace, because see, in the first two classes, I take this feedback from students. You are free to come and tell me individually. Okay? I don't want you to blurt it out in class because then it will affect my sentiments also. So then please come and tell it to me personally, okay, so that I can maybe improve upon if anything, if the pace, the words that I am using, anything is difficult for you or it's turning out not fine, just come and tell me in the first 2 days, not after the 14th day, coming and telling me like, ma'am, after the first 2 classes I checked out because I could not understand. Okay, please do that. Coming to this, so we've completed major community, we've completed minor community. Now I have to tell you, let's look at the diagram. There is individual, there is population, there is community, and then there is the most important word that we are bothered about, which is ecosystem. Ecosystem. What are you seeing over there extra? Yeah, there is some water, there's one rock also over there. Okay, so compared to the previous diagram, what got included over there? Yeah, I know, water and rock. What are those? Abiotic factors. So now there is biotic factor, which is your grass and fish and everything. There's an abiotic factor also. Do we know of something like this? Have we learned a term very similar like this? Maybe it can have biotic, maybe it can have abiotic. What was that term? Environment. Okay. So now this is the word that they confuse you with. There's always problems with what is environment, what is ecosystem, and how are they different. See, when it comes to an environment, it can have biotic features. It can have abiotic features. They may interact with each other. I told you those words. But when it comes to ecosystem, you should have biotic features, you should have abiotic factors, and they should interact with each other. And not just over there, they should interact and they should create something out of that interaction. Okay, so hear me out. In an ecosystem, you should have abiotic factors, you should have biotic factors, They both have to interact with each other and interact among themselves. Not just interact. After interacting, they should create something new maybe. They should create a service. They should create a product, something that is new. Got it? So for example, you have a tree. The tree has the root. The root is holding the soil together. What is the service that is created over there? It is giving strength to the soil. So they have to interact, and when they interact, they have to create a good or a service. They have to create a product or they have to create a service. Service, when I'm saying, don't think economy terms. For example, a tree is existing. You are getting fresh air from there. That is a service. Understand? So, coming to the most important word that we have to discuss, ecosystem. So, when I'm saying ecosystem, this should come to your mind first. You should have biotic, you should have abiotic, they should interact, and once they interact, they should create something. They should do something. They shouldn't just interact and stay stagnant. They have to do something. When you do something, you call it that they are performing a function. For example, you're sitting in the class, you are listening to me, you're performing the function of listening. So similarly, when it comes to an ecosystem, if they are doing something, what it means? It is the function of the ecosystem. So this is the reason why ecosystem is defined as the functional unit of nature. Functional unit means that level of nature where there's actually something created, some work is done. Okay? So functional unit of nature where living organisms interact among themselves and also with the surrounding physical environment. Here I have not written to create a good or a service. Why? Because when I'm saying functional, it means that. If I'm saying functional unit, it means that it's performing the function of creating a good or a service. Clear? So if someone asks you what's the difference between environment and ecosystem, it has to be crystal clear in your head. In environment, it can have these interactions. It can have biotic, it can have abiotic. But in an ecosystem, you can define it only if you have these components and they interact and they create a good or a service. Fine? Okay. See, look at the second picture, definition which is there. Can I call ecosystem also as a community of organisms interacting with each other and their environment in such a way that some function is done? I'm asking you, not saying. Can I call it that? Think of the diagram. Is in an ecosystem, can you have community of organisms? Yes, you can have. Not can, in fact, you will have most of the time. You will have a community of living organisms. Will you have surrounding environment? Yes, you will have your rock and water and everything over there. And then, will they interact? Yes. And when they interact, what it has to? It has to create some kind of energy exchange or system level processes. This they just complicated. We will study what this means, but your understanding is something is created. Energy is created. Energy is exchanged. Some kind of process is done. Makes sense? Okay. Now, see, when we study these definitions, we study it to the completion of it. But when UPSC asks questions, what they tend to do is they don't bother with so much of clarity. Okay. So I'm going to show you a question and I want you to figure out what is your answer for it. Is this clear till here? So ecosystem is clear. We come to the other question. I want you to put your mind to it, and this is a previous year question, I think 2009 or 10, I'm not sure. But the point is, I want you to choose the best answer possible. There might be 2 or 3 options that seem very similar and you want to choose that as the answer, but I want you to choose the best answer. In fact, that is what UPSC did at that point. Okay. Online guys, what's your answer? think properly. You might have options where you find it similar. Okay. You all have an answer? Don't blurt out. I will come and ask you with your reasoning. What's the answer? Okay. Flora and fauna just means plants and animals. Flora is plant, fauna is animal. A. You're reading still. Okay. Okay. From a quick walk, most of you have either gone with A or C. Those who have chosen B or D. Okay. Let's first, so there are two concepts you have not understood. You have not understood ecosystem. You have not understood this one also, which is that part of the earth which is inhabited by living organism. What is this, guys? Biosphere. Yeah? Living life, I had told you this. So this is biosphere, not ecosystem. So this is the wrong option. The flora and fauna of a geographical area. What is that? Did I teach you that till now? No. Wildlife is just the animals. Flora and fauna is the biodiversity of an area. Okay, we have not reached there yet. But it's still, you know enough to understand it's not ecosystem. It's not ecosystem, it's not environment, it's not habitat, it's none of these other words. Okay. Now coming to A and C. Okay. How many of you went with A? Keep your hands up. Okay, down. Why didn't you choose C? I'm pretty sure you would have gotten confused with A or C, isn't it? Or you just went directly A only. How many of you got, out of those who marked A as the answer, how many of you had like a clear confusion between A and C? Nobody. No, one. Okay, two. You had a confusion. Okay. Now the bigger question is why the others were not confused. Okay, because A is not that clear in the first place. A statement reads, a community of organisms, fine, interacting with one another. Okay. C statement reads, a community of organisms together with the environment in which they live. Now, both of these are not the perfect definitions of ecosystem. So don't try to gain which is the perfect one. That is what UPSC did over here. You, in your pursuit for perfection, you would end up leaving this answer and thinking that, oh, they made a mistake in the question. No, they did not. They just want you to choose which is the one that is much closer to the definition of ecosystem. Okay, now for this purpose, what is the definition of an ecosystem? What all should be there? Ecosystem. Biotic should be there. Abiotic should be there. Then they should interact. Okay, then they should create a. In the first statement, A, what all of these things are there? A community of organisms interacting with one another. What is the meaning? They're just talking about biotic factors. Community of organisms means it's only biotic factors. Biotic factors just interacting with biotic factors. C statement is what? Community of organisms, which is biotic factors, together with the environment, which is abiotic factors, interacting with Together with, that's it. Together with means that they're just combining it. They're not even saying about environment. They're not even saying about interaction. But the very fact that biotic and abiotic is included over here makes this a much more closer option to what an ecosystem is. Are you getting the point? Okay, so here this is one place where you had to take a call, which is going to be the one much more closer. Okay, so in that first definition, they're just talking about biotic factors interacting with each other. In the C definition, they're talking about biotic and abiotic, and that's the only reason why C is slightly better than A. Clear? So now you know how UPSC can ask questions of this. They will not give you the perfect definition. Yeah. No, that is what. But then here, what has happened over here is, that is the point I told you. Here there is biotic and abiotic. In the case of, okay, now I'm telling you something, what an ecosystem is. I told you in the ecosystem, they should have biotic, they should have abiotic. The rest of it is only secondary to it. They will interact and they will create a product. In your first option, which is A, they're just talking about biotic factors. Okay, leave the interaction part. In the first part, they're just talking about biotic factors interacting with each other. But that is not what an ecosystem is. In an ecosystem, biotic and abiotic will interact with them. There has to be, first condition is there has to be biotic. There has to be abiotic. The option A just takes into question only biotic factors. They might be talking about the interaction, but then they have missed the first point itself, which is that there should be abiotic factors.
So, organism in the sense they are talking about biotic.
Only biotic. Organism means it is only biotic. Otherwise, if they have to say about abiotic, they will use words like environment, surrounding, something like that. Clear? Fine? Clear? There is 1 day gap after this class on Monday. Okay? Please remember these things. Because from Monday, it will be continuation of these things. So on that, if you come, I'm using the word ecosystem and you ask me, ma'am, no, I need you to please revise it and come. Okay? This is clear? This question is clear? Okay, now let's few points associated with this. Okay, so I hope now community, the terms that we were discussing were what? Individual, population. What was it after that? Individual, population, community, ecosystem. Several ecosystems put together, it's called as biome. And several biomes all together is called as biosphere. Okay, so that in the levels of organization, that is done. Now a question is, so I talked about ecosystem. I told you ecosystem will have biotic, abiotic factors, etc. Does this ecosystem always have to be some very large area? Not necessary. So let me ask you, is tree an ecosystem? What do you think? There is one tree. Let's look at the definition and see. Biotic factors are there. Abiotic factors are there. Constant interaction is there. Some product is created. Yes, tree is an ecosystem. So, if tomorrow they ask you 3-4 options and choose which amongst these are ecosystems, this is your criteria. Is there biotic factor? Is there abiotic factor? Are they interacting? Are they creating a product? If all of these conditions are met, yes, it's an ecosystem. Okay. Now, an ecosystem can have, if I have to have, this is a trick question, just think and tell me. If I have to declare something as an ecosystem, what is the minimum number of species that is needed over there? 2? Yes, 2 or more. So it can be as limited as 2 and it can go to how many ever numbers. Why 2? Because if there is 2, you can declare that thing as a community. And for the ecosystem to exist, you need a community of living organisms, non-living things, interaction. Make sense? I hope you're jotting down these smaller points. Okay, these can come as individual statements. So the minimum number of species required for something to be declared as an ecosystem is 2. Okay. Now, so I told you, this is the last word probably that we'll be discussing today. See, we've reached to a point where we know right now about ecosystem. So once we know about ecosystem, the next class entirely we'll be talking about ecosystem. So what all are there in the ecosystem, as I just told you? Abiotic things, biotic things, and they constantly interact with. So for example, an abiotic thing interacts with a biotic thing. There is another biotic thing. The biotic and the biotic can also interact. The abiotic and abiotic thing can also interact. So all of these interactions are there. And now, if I have to study what all are these different interactions, that stream of science is called as ecology. Okay? So ecology is basically the study of interactions between the organisms and the abiotic factors, and between the organisms, between the abiotic factors, all those arrow marks that I've marked over here, whenever any kind of interaction is happening like that, if I'm studying that in detail, it's called as ecology. So what are we going to do in the next 4 or 5 days? We're going to study ecology. Why? Because it will be primarily about how these different things are interacting with each other. For example, right now, if it is snowing in some area, what is it? It's an abiotic factor. How will that snow impact humans? How will the snow impact plants? How will the snow impact the soil around? If I'm studying each of these things, what am I studying? I'm studying the interaction that is there, and that study is called as ecology. Clear? Okay. Now, in some areas, in some detail, when some of these demo tests are put, just understand this, ecology can be studied on different levels. Okay. So, for example, you have 3 types of ecology. The first type is called as landscape ecology. The next is population ecology. And the third is behavioral ecology. This is a very touch and go kind of an area. You don't need to dwell deep into it, but I need you to be familiar with these terms in case they ask it in one option or something. So what is this landscape ecology? So to understand this, see, if I look all around the world, everything can be put into some ecosystem or the other, right? If there are two or more organisms, 2 or more species, and then there is abiotic factors and they're interacting, I can classify it as an ecosystem. Now, in some cases, I might be studying the interactions that are there in a very particular geographical area. Okay. For example, I'm taking this classroom. This classroom is a geographical area. Geography doesn't mean you need to have hill and river and all. It's just location. Okay. This classroom is a geographical unit. It's a landscape. It's a complete geographical area. Here you have biotic factors. Then if I bring in 2 more plants or something, it can be called as a community also. Right? Now, constantly, there is an interaction happening between the biotic factor, the abiotic factor. All of these interactions are happening in this particular geography. So, if I have to study only the interactions that are happening in this particular geographic unit, this is called as landscape ecology. Okay, so what am I doing over here? I will choose a geographic unit, and in that geographic unit, what all are the interactions that are happening? I will study it under landscape ecology. Okay, so it can be just different interactions happening in a geographical unit. Make sense? Clear? Second term is population ecology. Now, population ecology means what? You are not taking one particular geographic area or anything. For example, you're taking the entire globe. Okay? Taking the entire globe, and I'm talking about the human population. Okay? And I'm studying in detail how is this human population interacting with the ecosystem. How is the human population interacting with the abiotic factors? If only that is studied, it's called as population ecology. Yeah, I hope you understand. It's like you have a subject science, and under science you have zoology and botany and everything. Similarly, you have a subject ecology. Under that, you can either choose to study it in a geographic unit, or you can choose to study it in population. What's your doubt? You have a doubt? Fine. Okay. And finally, it's called as behavioral ecology. Behavioral ecology is, they have brought it down even further. See, now, at the end of the day, we might say, oh yeah, okay, we are, part of ecosystem and everything. But still, each of us behave differently with our environment. Like, for example, right now, I'm literally sweating, okay? Because there is no proper temperature over here. There is no AC over here, okay? Maybe some other person who stands over here might not have the same interaction with the environment. They might not feel this hot, right? So what is being concluded over here? Individual organisms also interact with your ecosystem in different ways, okay? If I'm studying it from an organism's perspective, it's called as behavioral ecology. So to put it into plain terms, very simple UPSC terms, if I'm studying ecology from an organism's perspective, it is behavioral ecology. If I'm studying ecology or ecosystem from a population's perspective, it's population ecology. And if I'm studying ecosystems from a geographic perspective, where large number of communities are involved, it's called as landscape ecology. They can ask you that also. So landscape is in the perspective of communities, because you will have different organisms. Population is on the perspective of a population of an organism. And finally, behavioral is the nature of individual organisms. Make sense? Clear? Sure? Yeah? Clear? Not be clear in the first go. There will be doubts. Are you clear? Which is the term you're not clear with? Behavioral. When you have, see, for example, let's say we are taking, there is reduced carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, okay? Or there is very high amount of temperature in the atmosphere. If you would have noticed, now there's very high amount of temperature, okay? If I'm taking a human population altogether, we can say, yes, human population can survive within a temperature range of maybe 38 degrees Celsius or something. Beyond that, human population cannot survive. How are we making that conclusion? Because we know how a human population as an average will behave with the ecosystem, right? Are you not understand? Did you understand population ecology? Yeah. So if, for example, now see, now there are three of you over here. Okay, there is a plant also over here. There's a dog also over here. All of you are over here. Okay. Now, if the temperature changes over here, if I'm taking you as a group, so there's a human population, there is a dog population, and then there is a plant population. Each of these will interact with the ecosystem in a different manner. Interact means what? The human population might not be able to survive beyond a temperature. Plant population might be okay. They'll be like, yeah, this plant can maybe survive in higher temperature. Dog population might not be able to adapt. Different things can happen. Now, I'm taking that and I'm studying that of different populations. It's called as population ecology. How a human population interacts, how a dog population interacts, etc. Now, I'm just taking the human population here, three of you. When the temperature changes, don't you think each of you will behave in a different manner? No. You will behave. Why? Because some people have much tolerance for temperature. Some people don't have much tolerance for temperature change. You might feel cold very quickly. She might feel only much later. She might not feel cold at all. Each organism's behavior with the temperature change is different. So if I have to study that, what is the field called? Behavioral ecology. Because based on the change in the ecosystem, your behavior has changed. Make sense? Clear? Sure? Okay, fine. Yeah. So we have completed till ecology over here. We did the question also. Now the next class we start off with different components of ecosystem and everything, but obviously I cannot leave you without the assignment that is there. So I have put 5 questions at the end. This is your 2012 and I still am yet to see your first assignment, by the way. Okay. So tomorrow, day after, whenever. So today you guys leave, but see every class I reach over here like around some 9:30 or something. Okay, so you're free to show me this work either in the morning when I come over here or in the break. Okay, or after the class I'll be available over here for a limited amount of time, at least then. But I want to see it. Okay, the second assignment. 1 minute. Second assignment is based on the paper of 2012. I have put 5 questions, 5 super important questions that have a lot of relevance even today. If you observe over here, there is a question which has a different kinds of species. So you are in for a lot of species work. Okay. So you have to look at all of these factors. I hope you know now what are the factors you have to collect under this. And I want to see this note. On Monday, I want to see how well you have gone into the question. Anytime you come across a question, don't forget to check the current affairs also. Okay? Fine?